Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I wanted to welcome everyone to the District 6 Council, County Council Candidate Forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Baltimore County, and the Randallstown NAACP. My name is Ryan Coleman, and I'm the president of the Randallstown NAACP, and I'll be the moderator tonight. We are pleased to present the opportunity for voters of Baltimore County to meet the candidates and hear what they have to say about important issues facing Baltimore County. The League and the Randallstown NAACP are nonprofit, nonpartisan political organizations. Neither organization supports nor opposes candidates for public office, and both do not support political parties. The League's mission is to encourage informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The Randallstown NAACP seeks to assure that African Americans, as well as all citizens, participate in our democracy as active and informed voters. A few housekeeping details before we begin our forum. The forum this evening is a webinar, which means that audience members can submit questions to the host in the chat, but cannot post questions verbally or enable their video. Audience members will not be able to view the questions submitted by others. We invite you to submit questions via the chat, where they will be collected, vetted, and passed on to me. Our screener will review questions for repetition and choose for variety. Questions submitted should be appropriate for all candidates. We may not have time to address all questions submitted by the audience. During the forum, the candidates will respond to questions, but this is not a debate, and time will not be provided for candidates to rebut each other's responses. Civility is expected, and candidates who behave disrespectfully, such as talking over other candidates, will be warned and may be muted or removed from the forum. Please note that no unauthorized recordings of the forum are permitted, as it is content and property of the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP, and may not be used without our permission. A recording will be available after the forum, and you can actually find it on the League of Women Voters website and also the Randallstown NAACP website. And with that, we are ready to begin our forum this evening. Our timekeeper is Ms. Stacy Morrison. Thank you. Our question facilitator is Ms. Norris Miller-Smith. Thank you to her in advance. And I, of course, am your moderator. The Baltimore County Council is an elected legislative body, and it is vested with all lawmaking power granted by the county charter and by the General Assembly of Maryland. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates for County Council in District 6, Republican Tony Campbell and Democrat Mike Ertel. The candidates will each make a 2-minute opening statement as well as a 2-minute closing statement after the question and answer period. The order of the opening statement was determined by the alphabetical order of their last names. The closing statements will be in reverse order from the opening statement. The timekeeper will give a 30-second verbal warning and announce when the allotted time is up. After the opening statements, each of the candidates will have opportunity to respond to questions. Candidates will not be allowed to give rebuttals, however. We will begin with questions developed by the League of Women Voters and the Randallstown NAACP, followed by questions from the audience. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and time limits will be strictly enforced. A timekeeper will alert the speaker when they have 30 seconds left and when time is up. The speaker must stop speaking within 10 seconds. Our goal is to end the forum around 7 p.m., and we appreciate everyone's help in achieving this goal. We will now have the 2-minute opening statements from each of the candidates. Mr. Campbell, you're up.
Thanks, Ryan. I want to thank the Randallstown NAACP and League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight. One of the things that I know when I'm walking around, this election is kind of taking people by surprise. They're aware there's a governor's race out there, but down ballot races like county council kind of get lost in the shuffle, and so we really appreciate you having us tonight. So my name's Dr. Tony Campbell. My background is I'm a professor at Towson, and I teach political science, American government, political theory, religion, and politics. My academic background, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and a doctorate degree from Liberty Seminary. I was an Army chaplain. And the reason why I'm running for county council is because 5 years ago, I sat on the Charter Review Commission, and Ryan, you mentioned a county charter a few minutes ago. And sitting in that room with a bunch of Towson lawyers who really, pull the levers in Baltimore County, kind of realized how corrupt Baltimore County actually is, how much of a pay-to-play system Baltimore County is. And most voters, most citizens in Baltimore County don't have a clue. And I think it's important for leaders, members of the county council to, shine light on this, shine light on the kind of stuff that the deals that are done, the payoffs that are made, and to bring that voice of representation to the people of the 6th district. So fixing Baltimore County is why I'm running. And there's several things that we'll get into, probably public safety, education, infrastructure that are important to me. But overall, it's about fixing Baltimore County, and I'm asking you for your vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Ertel, 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters and the Randallstown branch of the NAACP for hosting tonight. I know Tony and I both appreciate it. My name is Mike Ertel. I've been a community leader volunteer for a long time in the county. Was on the board of trustees for CCBC for 8 years as well. My professional background is I'm an insurance broker. I work predominantly with small business people, helping them with all kinds of issues from risk management to benefits. Have 3 children, raised them here in the county. They all went to county schools. I grew up in the city in Hamilton, was a product of the public school system there. Proud graduate of Poly in the city, and Towson University right here in Baltimore County. Have done a lot of diverse things as a community person, everything from dealing with Towson University issues to keeping the Loch Raven fireworks going for 4th of July, where we don't have county funding for that, and we've been able to do things to get people together to fund things. Also,
30
have
seconds.
done community cleanups and a lot of different things. The reason why I'm running, similar to Tony, in that there's a lot of things that we can do better in Baltimore County, and we have a lot of things that need attention, and I'd like to do that if elected.
Thank you, Mr. Ertel, for that opening statement. And we're actually gonna stay right here with you with the first question, okay?
All right.
And it's over a budget issue. What are your priorities for Baltimore County budget? And are there particular areas of the county that you see as a priority for these funds?
Okay, great. So many people may know this, you may not. About 51% of the county budget goes towards the school system right off the bat. So the county portion of it that we spend out all our other dollars from is about 49% of that total. One of the things that I've seen in the 6th district, and when we talk about the 6th district, these are all the inner communities from Towson to Parkville, Overley, Rosedale, Fullerton, a lot of older communities with a lot of infrastructure needs. We have roads that are just, some that are just almost look like third world. I don't think they've been paved since the early 70s or something. So we have a lot of infrastructure needs. Underneath those roads, we have a lot of sewers and both sanitary and storm drain runoff sewers that need to be replaced. So there's a lot of infrastructure needs. We have a lot of old schools still that we need to get up to the 21st century. A lot of rec and park needs. We don't have enough playing fields in the center part of the county. Often,
30 seconds.
and then Also, I'd like to see some of that money spent on economic development here in Baltimore County. I think we need to attract more manufacturing to the area and some better job opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Mr. Campbell, what are your priorities for Baltimore County budget? And are there particular areas of the county that you see as a priority for these funds?
So as Mike mentioned, hitting 13,000 doors across the district, you get to see the information. The kind of stuff that our inside Beltway communities are going through. Mike mentioned roads and kind of the infrastructure. And I think that goes back to what local government's supposed to do, right? What is the role of local government? And for me, it's three things: it's infrastructure, education, and public safety. And so I think we need to be wise in how we're spending our money as far as education. 51% of our property tax dollars goes to Charles Street. Right now, there's no accountability or transparency of what happens, as far as the bureaucracy over there on Charles Street. So I think providing that oversight, providing that kind of accountability and transparency.
Mr. Campbell, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I had some trouble hearing you. If you could start back just a little bit.
Oh, wait.
Go ahead.
Did you hear me? Am I here?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're here.
All right. So transparency and accountability. 51% of our property tax dollars goes to BCPS, and the bureaucracy has been totally tone deaf as far as answering to anybody. There's a ransomware attack that happened several years ago. We still have no clue about how much money that cost us, and that's our property tax dollars that goes over there. So accountability and transparency. Mike mentioned about the infrastructure as far as some of our inside the Beltway communities, our Harford Road, Bel Air Road, Overly, Fullerton, Rosedale. Those are important as far as spending those dollars. But I think that we need to kind of look at county government, what it does, and quite frankly, what it's not doing very well. And so while I think the money is there as far as, budgeting, implementation, and those kind of things, I think, unfortunately, the execution of these programs, the execution of the public works isn't what it needs to be. So that's where I would kind of focus on as far as using the county government and maybe even the inspector general's office in the county to look at how government's doing its job, where it's not doing it, and using our legislative power to kind of shake some trees and to get that stuff done.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. We're actually going to stay right with you and our next question is on safety. What steps could the county council adopt to prevent recidivism and decrease crime?
I think education is it me first?
Yes, Mr. Campbell,
Okay.
you first. Yes.
Right. So I'm an educator, and education is the civil rights issue of the 21st century. It's about accountability and transparency. And I don't think that, quite frankly, Baltimore County Public Schools is doing a good enough job educating our children. And, I talk to school board members because I'm on the school board nomination commission. I'm the vice chair of that commission. And when I talk to school board members, sometimes they're at a loss of what the bureaucracy on Charles Street's doing too. And I think that if you don't have that kind of governance and oversight from your school board, then at least what we should do as far as the legislative level, on the county council level, is to demand accountability.
30 seconds.
So the key to recidivism, the key to, kind of making sure that folks don't go down the wrong path, is making sure that they have a great education, that they're not going down that wrong path, that they have choices, that have job opportunities, and we need to do a better job of that.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Ertel, the question is for you. What steps could the county council adopt to prevent recidivism and decrease crime? 2 minutes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of community policing. One of the issues that we're struggling with right now in Baltimore County is that we're about, I think the number's now 196 officers short in Baltimore County. So we are we're still getting the job done, but I think we're putting a lot of pressure on the officers we have left. We have to look at the root causes of crime in the county, and we have more poverty now than we've ever had. We have schools that have low test scores, so we're putting a lot of students out into the world who often feel like they don't have all the choices they could, and sometimes are making bad life decisions. So it's a multi-pronged thing. We have to, and the other thing I see a lot of as I'm in the neighborhoods is, and I think COVID has not helped us here, is there's not the sense of community that we've had before, where there's a lot of people that are kind of out in the neighborhoods looking after people and kind of being those ears and eyes. I mean, we have people doing that, but I think one of the things we can do as council people is
30 seconds.
Community building. I've been a community association person. That's one of the things I'd like to do if elected, to start doing some town halls and kind of work on how we kind of attack the issue at in the neighborhoods themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Ertel, for that, for those remarks. We're actually going to stay with you on the next question, which is in the public health area. In
Okay.
Baltimore County, a number of communities currently face food deserts, and thousands of residents face food insecurity. How will you work to resolve these situations?
So good question. So one of the things that's been very hopeful is this year, one of our Baltimore County delegates, who's running for Senate now, Ben Brooks, was able to get a bill passed. It was House Bill 680 that gives property tax credits to companies that will open grocery stores and food deserts. So we're hoping that might be a tool that we can use in Baltimore County, especially in the 6th district, where we have some shopping centers where we could really use some grocery stores, where we kind of have Family Dollars and things like that, but we don't have, a bona fide grocery store. One of the jobs we'll have to do at the county level is designate areas that are the food deserts, and then work to attract quality grocery stores to come to the area, and try to entice them with this, with the tax credits that this bill provides. And food insecurity, one of the things that we're seeing at our Baltimore County schools, more than half of the students now in Baltimore County public schools qualify for free and reduced meals. And that's a high number. We have a lot of organizations that are working on this, but
30 seconds.
again, it's root causes. We have a student support network that has done a wonderful job of trying to help students that have food insecurity issues. But it's a large issue, and it's a complex issue, and we need to do better at it in Baltimore County.
Thank you for those comments, and we'll go to Mr. Campbell now. Do you need me to repeat the question for you, Mr. Campbell?
No, I got it.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I agree with Michael on most of what he's talking about, most of the points that he's made. I think the thing to keep in mind, though, is what's the role of local government, right? What can we do as leaders to bring people to the table, bring them as partners, with us, because local government we can't wave a magic wand and kind of solve all these problems by ourselves. I mean, we can provide some funding, we can do some things as far as governmental, kind of incentives and programs and partnering, as Mike said, as far as our state partners, because they can actually pass legislation, right? That they can actually provide these incentives on a state level, because there's more funding opportunities at the state level than there is at the local level to deal with these kind of issues. But I think that when, I don't hear anything as far as our current elected officials at the county level as far as food deserts. So I think one of the things that we need to do is, quite frankly, is to be adults about it, is actually talk about the issue, is to bring it up and to be champions about taking care of each other and making sure that families and children and folks in our communities are not wanting for food, right? So you have great nonprofits like the Maryland Food Bank, that's out there doing this work every day, and we have a bunch of faith-based churches. I know, especially in the African American community, there's a lot of those faith-based organizations that are providing food to
30
families and
seconds.
people. So is it local government actually doing the work itself, or is it us actually stepping up and being leaders and bringing people together and saying, hey, this is something that we should all take a part of. We should all be a part of this, and we should never have a child go hungry in Baltimore County Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for those comments. We're going to stay right here with you. Obviously, homelessness in Baltimore County is on the rise, and it's a direct correlation to affordable housing. What are your plans for improving the availability of affordable housing?
Well, I read somewhere, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but there are apparently several thousand vacant houses in Baltimore County. And that's where we should start. There are, kind of major projects that developers are trying to do as far as, kind of high-rise affordable housing projects that, some of them are good, some of them are quite frankly not so good. But if we have, existing housing stock, several thousand pieces of existing housing stock that we can revamp, and we can do some work as far as the infrastructure and to get those back online, sort of almost like what the city's going through as far as vacant houses right now. I think that's where we start. I think, again, I don't really hear the 7 members of the county council presently talking about this issue and talking about how that impacts homelessness and affordable housing, but that seems to be an easy lift for us, but again, sometimes you got to, pull back the curtain and say, well, Baltimore County isn't as great as we think it is. Here's the problem. Here's a possible solution. And here's some funding that maybe we can do, but either at our level, we have partners with HUD, we have partners at the state housing department, that we should be able to partner together and to, bring all these resources to the table and
30
target them
seconds.
to these vacant houses. And that's what I would do as a county council person.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Appreciate those comments. Mr. Ertel?
So I think what I hear often from a lot of different either elected officials and people that are experts in the field, if you will, a lot of what we're hearing now, for many years in the Baltimore region, we have segregated affordable housing into either single buildings or single complexes. And counties that have been more successful with providing affordable housing have done it where they've provided a percentage of units that are in market rate housing. So Montgomery County does a lot of that. Howard County does that. And they seem to be doing well with it. So I think we need to start looking at opportunities there. As Tony said, there are, it's ironic often when you're walking down a street and you see abandoned homes that are good housing stock, and you wonder why, these houses aren't occupied. One of the things that we've seen with segregated affordable housing is that it perpetuates inequities that contribute to poverty. And I think as we go forward in Baltimore County, we need to look realistically
30 seconds.
at providing more support services for those people that use the affordable housing, because they have needs beyond just the housing. They have crises and different things, and to have support services around them will help us in general and hopefully help people get out of the cycle of poverty where they won't need the affordable housing later on. So
Thank you for the comments. We're actually going to stick right here and kind of expand on a little bit about what you just said, Mr. Ertel.
Okay.
How would you encourage first-time home ownership, especially for minority county residents?
All right. Good question. So one of the things I'd like to see in the county, and hopefully I can answer this question, you know, it's a big question in the sense of there's a lot of things going on right now. So we have areas of the county where one of the things that concerns me is teachers, firefighters, police officers often can't afford to live where they work. And we don't have, we have some live where you work programs, but I don't know if they're as, I hate this word, but robust as they need to be. So I think we need to look at that. The other thing we're seeing a lot of, and this is a national trend where we have, you know, large investment companies that are coming in and buying housing up. And we have first-time homeowners often that are competing with those corporations to buy, you know, a house that's affordable, and often they're outbid. I have an Airbnb across the street from me that the person paid a lot of money for, but it's not it's not housing anymore. But I think there's a lot of programs that we need to look at in order to provide affordable housing, and look at areas where, like I said, where the regular middle-class person can't necessarily afford to live anymore. And we have areas of the county that that's becoming the reality. So we got to do better.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Campbell, your thoughts?
Yeah, unfortunately, gentrification is something that's happened not only in Baltimore County, but, you know, in Baltimore City as well, right? That you've had areas that people were, you know, kind of historically living in, you know, for decades, and then, you know, they were basically priced out of the market, right? They were, you know, because they can't afford to live there anymore, or the property taxes have gone up so much that they can't afford to even pay their property taxes. I mean, I've run into people that, you know, their houses actually paid off, but they're struggling to pay their property taxes because, you know, they're on a fixed income. So there's some of that stuff too. So I think we need to look at gentrification, look at how that's impacted housing stock, look at how that's impacted, you know, areas of the county where people want to live and quite frankly can't afford to live. Again, I think that it's not just county government doing it. I think we need to, you know, put together a proactive, program, you know, kind of programming as far as our state and federal partners, and be able to do that and to leverage those resources. You know, and I think quite frankly, we need to, I think Baltimore County is still, how to say this and be a little bit polite, not in my neighborhood kind of stuff, right? I hear that a lot in different parts of the 6th district.
30 seconds.
And so I think part of affordable housing is sort of like that pushback from some folks in those neighborhoods that are afraid of new people coming in, or people that are different from themselves coming in. And I think that we as leaders, especially, you know, as, you know, on the county council, you know, we need to step up and be leaders and say, hey, you know, this kind of discrimination, that shouldn't happen. It's 2022. It's not 1954. So we need to, you know, kind of grow up a little bit.
Time's up.
Thank you for those comments, and we're going to stay right here with you, Mr. Campbell. You mentioned Baltimore City in your answer. How would you work to, as far as regionalism is concerned? How would you work? Lost it. How would you work?
How would I work to fix Baltimore City?
Well, no, because you're Baltimore County. But how would you work on a regional basis with surrounding jurisdictions to reduce crime in our area?
Okay, so I'll be that guy, since I'm that guy in my classroom at Towson. I think the voters of Baltimore City did us a big favor in changing the the state's attorney in Baltimore City. I think that the way that Miss Mosby was doing her job. It was in direct correlation with the rise in crime in Baltimore County. Last year there was a rise. I mean, there was historic numbers of homicides in Baltimore County last year, and the 6th district wraps around the city. And so I think when we're dealing with with our partners, as far as our local jurisdictional partners, we need to be on the same page. I think Scott Schellenberger's doing a really good job as state's attorney for Baltimore County. And when you hear Scott and talk about the kind of the crimes that they're prosecuting and number and kind of the percentages and the things that they're doing in the state's attorney's office in Baltimore County, and then Baltimore City is doing exactly the opposite of that, then we've had some issues here. So I think that working together, being on the same page, not looking at it from just about a policing aspect or criminal justice aspect, but looking at different things like, again, homelessness, and that stuff doesn't stop at the city county line, and other issues that people are going through.
30 seconds.
The pandemic has had an impact on how we live and the decisions that people are making and those kind of things. And I think if we're able to kind of come together and to work together regionally on these big issues like crime and education, then I think it's going to make everything better for all jurisdictions.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Ertel, how would you work on a regional basis with surrounding jurisdictions to reduce crime in our area?
Because we're in the 6th district, that would predominantly be, Baltimore City is who we're dealing with. I grew up in the city, city boy at heart, been in the county for 35 years, love the county too. We live and die together as a region. If the city is a disaster, at some point it bleeds into the county. In the 6th district in particular, I don't think criminals are cognizant of where they're committing their crimes. They don't know if they're in the city or the county often when they're doing things. If they steal a car on, Northern Parkway and York Road, they may end up in Towson in, 5 minutes later. Or the same thing in Overley. If they steal a car, down at Glenmore and Bel Air Road, they're going to be out in Overley and Fullerton in a few minutes. So, we've had a regional approach with some of our policing with the carjackings and car thefts, but we need to do more. We actually, in the 6th district, we'll have 3 different city council people that are under the district. So it's 3 different city council districts to work with, but I think it's going to be important to work with those partners in the city to collaborate on crime, on infrastructure issues, school issues, all those things, quality of life issues for both the city and the county, and especially right at the line, because a lot of our community, like Overley, for instance, part of the Overley Association is in the city. So we have communities. We have that in Towson as well, where some part of the communities in the county and the other parts in the city.
Time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Ertel, for those comments. We're going to actually stick with you. Obviously, Baltimore County just went through a huge redistricting of districts, obviously. And one of the things that came out of that was the lack of diversity in the council. And one thing that came further out of that was the Vote More initiative that's ongoing right now to expand the number of county districts. Obviously, when Baltimore County was first chartered, that we had about 300,000 people, and now we have almost 900,000. Are you in favor of an increase in the council? Yes, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And Tony, I guess I'll prompt this. Tony and I actually worked together back in 2015. I think it was after he was on the Charter Commission, and we put together a group. We were among a group of just concerned citizens, where we looked at the council districts in the county, where we've had 7 council districts since 1955, when the county was about 300,000 people. Now we're at 855 or something. I don't know the exact number, but we still have 7 council districts. We absolutely need to have at least 2 more. The 4 more would work as well. It would definitely add diversity. It would allow often community people to be elected, because these districts have gotten so big. It's tough to run in these large districts without, trying to raise a lot of money. And oftentimes the people that are the most active out there trying to help their communities are not, career politicians or people that are able to easily transition over to trying to figure out how to run for office, but often they're the most effective people when they get into office. So I think it's time to bring
30 seconds.
Baltimore County out of 1955 into 2022 and 23 and beyond. We are underrepresented.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, so as Mike mentioned, so in 2015, I think we worked together doing this since 2012, since the last redistricting, because, the numbers were out of whack, 10 years ago. And finally, when I had a chance to be on a charter review commission, I actually had a map and showed 2 additional districts, one centered in Towson, another one in Woodlawn, because the county is 30% African American, 31% African American, and there should be a second majority minority district on the west side. But I sat in a room for 6 months with a bunch of Towson lawyers, and most of them didn't look like me. And they decided that 7 districts were fine. And so what happens then is that because they lacked a vision to do the right thing 5 years ago, the county was in a position to defend itself, basically with a, indefensible loss, indefensible map, right? And last time I checked, about $300,000 of taxpayer money went to defend that map. Your tax dollars went to defend that map. And so that's ridiculous, folks. I mean, there should be at least 9 districts. I've been pushing for 9 for a decade or so. I think it does a number of things. It keeps communities of interest together. When we talk about redistricting, as far as political scientists, we talk about we talk about communities
30
of interest.
seconds.
We talk about kind of geography, and a 9 district map would do both of those things. It would, again, create that Woodlawn district, and make sure that we have at least a second African American on our council. I hope to be number 3, another one as well. But then we also have a Towson district. Towson has been gerrymandered really bad for the last at least 2 cycles now, right? So that'll accomplish both if we at least have 9.
Thank you for those comments. And the next question is about the school system, and we understand that most of the budget, over 50%, goes to schools, and we also understand that the school board is kind of oversees the school. But as a county council person, what do you see your role is in the school system, increasing academic outcomes and just making us have better schools?
So starting with me, since I'm the vice chair of the school board nomination commission, which means that we appointed the 4 at-large members of the school board. And one of the things that came out of the hybrid school board, 7 elected, 4 appointed school board members, is you have this division. You've had basically a dysfunctional school board for the last three years or so, and they really haven't gotten on the same page as far as what's important, right? Metrics, looking at numbers. I mean, we saw yesterday the Baltimore Sun ran a piece talking about standardized test numbers as far as reading and math, and that Maryland was at the kind of the low end of the totem pole as far as the 50 states, and that's unacceptable. And we spend money. We spend a lot of money in our schools, and most of our property tax dollars goes over there, but there's no accountability. If the school board's not on the same page, if they're not asking for accountability and transparency from the bureaucracy, then I think it falls to us as the county council people that has a fiduciary responsibility of that budget to make sure that every kid is getting a quality education. So ultimately, I think that comes back on us. And if we don't step up and do our job and kind of go along to get along, or not saying anything because we don't want to be called, whatever name that people want to call us, then we're not doing our job. And I have a fourth grader in BCPS. I've got
30
8
seconds.
more years of my daughter being in this system. And education is not my number one goal, because I want to make sure that my kid and every other kid in this system has a quality education.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Ertel, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we have too many schools in Baltimore County now that are underperforming. And in our district in particular, we have a few that I was frankly shocked by the numbers. The test scores are very low. So we are sending these students out into the world who can't do basic math, who can't read at grade level, and then we expect them to thrive. I was on the board of trustees for CCBC for 8 years, and often what we'd see at CCBC, we often didn't get our students straight out of high school. They would go out and work for a while and then decide, I'm not really going to be able to make a living at Walmart, or working as a bar back at a bar. I want to get an education. And often the first semester or two, we were trying to get these students up to speed just to be able to do basic things. We have a lot of great programs. We have a lot of great teachers. County council typically has not been the voice of education in Baltimore County, but it is truly the bedrock that we stand on. If our education system
30
fails,
seconds.
we're going to see more poverty, we're going to see more crime. They're all intertwined. So the county council, the county leadership, including the county exec, we all have to start ringing the bell and work with the school board members as much as we can to look at how are we going to deal with this going forward.
Thank you for those comments. We appreciate those. Moving on to our next question. And it has to do with, obviously, Baltimore County has a lot of older neighborhoods, especially inside the Beltway, whether it's Liberty Road, whether it's Bel Air Road. They all have community plans. Can you give us a little thoughts on how do we reinvigorate, redevelop some of the older neighborhoods in Baltimore County?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it needs to be. We need to build these communities back. I grew up on the east side of the 6th district. I grew up in Hamilton, but we mostly spent a lot of our time in Parkville, Overlea, and Rosedale. And they are proud communities, the east side communities. We have some great housing stock there. We have great people there, but they need our backup. They need leadership to clean up some of the storefronts and champion these neighborhoods. Even into the marketing phase. We're gonna have to do some innovative things. We're an older county, and it's going to be up to us to figure out what those things are that we can stabilize these communities and have them thrive into the next generations. Because the goal really is to bring we want people to want to move to Baltimore County, raise their families here, and stay here. And if we let, our commercial corridors decline and
30 seconds.
They look bad. I was in a neighborhood in Overlea the other day. The neighborhood's absolutely gorgeous. You're right off Bel Air Road, but on Bel Air Road, there's burned out buildings and, boarded up storefronts and dilapidated properties. And we've got to deal with that. We got to figure out what we're going to do mixed use wise and get those, what's the next phase in Baltimore County.
Time's up.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Campbell.
Yeah, I think we need to do a better job as far as reimagining our Main Street program. You know, what are you talking about? Bel Air Road, Hartford Road, you know, that, you know, Mike mentioned earlier, you know, so walking through some, you know, the communities on the east side, you know, we talk about 130,000 residents for a county council person, and you knock on, you know, about 13,000 doors, and you hit 10% of them, right? So, but moving around the district, I mean, there are parts of the district that have, quite frankly, been neglected. They've been infrastructure is not good. That you look at, you know, 2 blocks away from the main roads, you have, quite frankly, nice middle class housing stock, right? And people have been there for decades, and they love where they're living. They love their communities. But you go 2 blocks to the main road, and it's like, you know, it's not good. I mean, it looks like it hasn't been, there hasn't been any kind of, you know, my mom would say TLC in the community, right? So, you know, it's not just about the county, because the county can do some things, but it's proactively using our partners and those resources, and especially kind of the Main Street program,
30 seconds.
and revitalizing those, you know, those commercial areas. So I think part of it is that, quite frankly, Towson's been overdeveloped. I was talking to a developer today, and, you know, kind of overly Fullerton, you know, has been underdeveloped, and we need to do a better job as far as, you know, getting more resources to those areas of the county.
Thank you for those comments. We'll move in. We're getting close to the end here. I think we have one more time, a little bit of time for one more question. When you, Mr. Campbell, when you look at transportation in Baltimore County, what are some ideas to improve transportation in Baltimore County? Obviously, Towson has a loop that's a free bus. You know, do you see other areas having a free bus? What are your thoughts on improving transportation?
I think an east-west corridor in Baltimore County would be a good idea. Kind of from Towson to, you know, the Perry Hall area, kind of the eastern Baltimore County. I think if we're going to do some kind of, you know, rapid bus kind of thing, I think that would be helpful. I think that, unfortunately, you know, some ideas are not good, right? So MTA is looking at putting rail lines, you know, as possible rail lines in Baltimore County, and maybe taking away a lane each way of York Road, and taking that away and putting a light rail or heavy rail in. And also possibly, you know, another alternative is Goucher Road and Lockgraven Boulevard. I think both of those rail ideas are bad ideas, but there needs to be better transportation. I think that, quite frankly, Baltimore, in the history of public transportation, Baltimore has been anemic. It's been short-sighted. It's been lackluster. You go, you know, 40 miles down the road in DC, you got a world-class metro system, you know. And I think that, unfortunately, we're kind of catching up, and we're doing it piecemeal. So I think the Towson Loop is a good example of kind of local moving people around where they want to go as far as shopping and those kind of things. But, you know, as a person that was, I was the former bike ped guy, bicycle pedestrian program manager for State Highway
30
Administration.
seconds.
And one of the things that we need to do, quite frankly, better is open space, green space, and maybe even the Towson area of Baltimore County. Because I think that can be a Bethesda, that can be a Columbia. But again, we don't do a good job as far as transportation planning. And so then we're stuck doing it piecemeal, and that's not the way to go.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Ertel.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need a coordinated plan. It seems like the MTA in Baltimore County doesn't do a good job of connecting people. Especially if you're going, you know, from east to west in the county, it's not easy to get from, and again, not that we're dealing with this in the 6th district necessarily, but if you lived in Perry Hall and you needed to get to Owings Mills by public transportation, it'd probably take you 2.5 hours to get there or more. You'd most likely have to go into the city, cross the city, and come back out. So we're going to have to look at maybe some kind of east-west transportation route in the district itself. In the 6th district, I'd like to see a loop. I think a loop would really do well in Rosedale or Overley. It would definitely help people there get around. We have a county ride program for seniors. 25% of our residents now are over 65, and some of those people used to drive, and now they're either can't afford a car anymore, or sometimes are unable or worried about driving. So we may have a crisis with seniors as well, and trying to get them around. So
30 seconds.
Possibly expanding county ride. I was told the other day that county ride used to go to the senior centers, and now it doesn't, or it's not the same program that it used to be. So we got to look at things like that as well. But we can't just assume everybody's driving a car. So.
Thank you for those comments. And real quick, I know we're getting close to time, but I saw about 3 questions, Mr. Ertel. Do you support the Overly Fullerton Community Plan and the Bel Air Road streetscape?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll work with the communities to implement those. And as Tony said, it's not all in the county. Like we've got to go find some commercial partners to help us with that, get some state funding for different things. But it would be a real joy to see the Bel Air Road, to turn Bel Air Road from what seems almost like a highway these days into something that I remember it as a kid, like it's a thriving business district. And that's tough these days with, the age of Amazon and everything else going on. But I think we can do it. And it's going to take some work.
Thank you for those comments. Mr. Campbell, do you support the Overly Fullerton Community Plan and the Bel Air Road streetscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, so we mentioned this earlier about, our state and federal partners, but I think as a county, I think we need to be cognizant of local community plans and actually help them actually get it done, right? Because I think some of the things, sometimes I think the county kind of goes its own way, and maybe listens to developers and other folks like that more than the community. And I think that as our local representatives, as a county council member, my job is to listen to my constituents, not really listen to the developers that are giving people money as far as election and re-election. So yeah, plans are great. I think implementation is as important. And as as county council people, I think we need to kind of step up and say, let's do what we can for the community first. Let's make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. See how we can then partner with, with our commercial interest and our developer interest and that kind of stuff, and see if we can bring those two things together and get as close as we can, if not right on, as far as center mass as far as what the community wants.
Thank you for those comments, and we are out of time for the formal question and answer portion of the program, and we'll move now into the candidates' closing statements. Mr. Ertel, you'll make the first closing statement.
Oh, good. Well, thanks everyone for being here tonight on this dreary, misty Tuesday night. I would just close by saying I have, like I said, I've done a lot of work over the years. A lot of vast experience with everything from zoning to development issues to school, overcrowded schools, dealing with community relations. And I think when it boils down to it, you have 2 great candidates here. I feel like I have just a little more, hands-on experience with dealing with a lot of the issues that we deal with on the county council. I feel like I can hit the ground running, and I hope you might consider voting for me in the next week or so through our 8 days of early voting and election day on the 8th. So appreciate everybody being here, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ertel. Mr. Campbell, your closing statement.
Ryan, I want to thank you for moderating. I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP for bringing us together and keeping me from hitting doors in the rain at 7 o'clock at night. So, you know, and Mike mentioned this earlier. I mean, unlike other council races, I mean, I think that both of us will be excellent council members for the district. Some other districts, maybe not so much, but you know, I think it comes down to voice. It comes down to representation. You know, I understand what the role of local government is supposed to be. I understand the partnerships as far as intergovernmental between local, state, and the national level, and have been at every level of government. Know what they're supposed to be doing. Know where the boundary lines are supposed to be as far as funding and how to get that funding and how to bring that back to the district as far as constituent service. So, you know, that's my experience. And I think that, quite frankly, it's 2022, and, you know, having one majority minority district in Baltimore County, that was fine in the 1990s. But in the 6th district, there's 30% African American, there's a 30% African American vote. And I think that we have an opportunity to
30 seconds.
A second person of color on the county council. And I think that as far as affordable housing, education, public safety, neighborhood crime, and that kind of stuff that every person's talking about in this campaign cycle, I think I'm the person to get it done and to bring a voice to the 6th district. So Campbell from Maryland.com, thank you so much, and have a blessed night.
Thank you. And I, as the moderator, I want to thank the audience members for their questions and participating in tonight's program. I want to, of course, thank both of the candidates for them coming to this forum tonight. You've given Baltimore County residents a great deal to think about as we vote in November. I would also like to thank our forum committee for arranging this event, and the League of Women Voters Baltimore County and the Randallstown NAACP for co-sponsoring this forum. In the next few days, recordings of the forum will be available on the League's website and also on the Randallstown NAACP's website as well. General Election Day is November 8th, 2022. Early voting begins October 27th in 2 days. And ends November 3rd at 8 p.m. So from the League of Women Voters, Baltimore County and Randallstown NAACP, we give you a good night. Thank you.